Hello, welcome back to the There I Said It channel. For today's topic, I'll be discussing something that has always been there, something that is always there, but we don't really recognize because of its unofficial nature, the informal economy. I'll be telling you about the informal economy in Nigeria, as I'll be giving you some stats, and we'll just take it from there. Let's get into it. So, the informal economy in Nigeria refers to a series of financial business activities, rather, that go undocumented, that do not exist within official government records, and basically the markets that do not exist on record, right? They don't exist, but they still happen, and there's a large population of businesses that operate within the Nigerian informal economy. In fact, of about 40 million MSMEs that we have in Nigeria, about 89% of them operate within the Nigerian economy, and about 70% of Nigeria's labor force operates within the Nigerian informal economy, and so that makes it a huge employer of the Nigerian labor force. The informal economy, it's not something that we can ignore because of how big it is, how vast it is, regardless of how officially unregulated and undocumented it is. There is still research going on around the informal economy, and we're still getting numbers and we're still getting facts within the Nigerian informal economy. Now, like I said before, about 70% of Nigeria's labor force or workforce is within the informal economy. This means that it not only contributes to a large percentage of Nigeria's employment rates, it also reflects a lot around Nigerians, how goods and services are provided with Nigerians. And so if major changes within the Nigerian informal economy affects the regular Nigerians, because we're talking about businesses that are within your streets but don't have an official CAC number. We are talking about businesses, the woman that is selling akara in front of you. Yeah, we're talking about the shop where you go to buy milk and eggs from on occasion when you run out. I'm talking about all these tiny businesses that exist around us that most Nigerians go to quickly for whatever goods and services they need. These businesses exist within the informal economy, and one of the struggles that the informal economy has had in recent years is its profitability. So regardless of the fact that most of these businesses can make up $1 million a month, most of them also make less than 500 a month. And to add to this problem is the fact that in recent years, Nigeria's inflation rate has increased, and it keeps increasing, and the prices of goods and services keeps going up. Now, take note that a large percentage of businesses within the informal economy rely on, or rather function within, retail and trade, right? So while there are services, there are some other industries, there's accommodation and food, all of these exist, entertainment, so all of these exist, but the major, like at least 70% of it, lies within retail and trade. So basically people that import things and sell them within Nigeria. We're talking about people, not really imports, but people that buy things from others and then sell their goods, farmers that sell their vegetables and their whatever produce that they make in the markets. We're talking about market women that buy things in bulk from warehouses and then sell them in shops. We're talking about all of these people. They form a part of the Nigerian informal economy. And I say they're important. I say it's important to take note of this particular fact because they also contribute about 50 to 60% of Nigeria's GDP every year. And so the number can fluctuate, but it's still a huge contribution to the GDP for just being the informal economy. Now, it's important to note that Nigeria's informal economy, or rather an informal economy, it kind of connotes, or kind of like, it's definitive, or it kind of says something about a country. So what it says is that this country is either growing, or this country is on its way, or this country hasn't really been developed. So the bigger your informal economy is, the smaller your growth economic wise is. Alright, so within Nigeria, what we have is, if you see a situation where it's 70% of Nigeria's labor forces, is not 50, it's not we're sharing it half this way, half that way, no, it's 70%. You see that number, you know that, oh, a large percentage of Nigerians are actually going towards the undocumented side in order to survive. It tells you that Nigeria's economy is not doing as well. It's also one of the major indicators rather. So going further, one of the good parts of the Nigerian informal economy that I would like to say at this point in time, considering the way things currently are, is that it's a driver of, rather than a driver, it's one of the major means through which Nigeria's employment rates can actually work or function, because a lot of people who are not educationally fit, who don't have enough experience to join the formal economy or get a proper job with all the insurance benefits and the compensation and all of that, they find their way to the informal economy, and as imperfect as it seems, it's something that works. Now, something about the informal economy, like I said, it's undocumented, and so it has a lot more restrictions. Other than it being bound by the inflation rate and all of the operational costs increasing, it's also known for having very little support from proper financial legal entities. So say for example, if a business, you wanted to start a business, it would not be very easy to get loans from formal entities like banks. It would not be easy, and so most of these informal businesses rely on family and friends. They rely on personal loan apps, online apps, and so these are their sources of income. It is not a good thing. I would not regard this as a good thing. In no way is it a good thing. I just want to show how ignored the system is sometimes, and so that makes it even more difficult. But within that sphere of unregulation, most of these businesses are able to, like, if you wanted to start a business, you could just come up with an idea and then go forth with it and then navigate your way. Granted, they do pay taxes. I'll say this: they do pay taxes in form of market levies to some of within the area you're operating in, and so that's the Nigerian informal economy. It's a major driver of employment within Nigeria. It is heavily reflective of how the Nigeria's standard of living is, because if the cost of living goes up and these small businesses can't really do well, the average Nigerian feels it, right? And so whatever we can to make the ecosystem, the economy within this space a bit better, for them to make more profits without it being harmful to the average Nigerian, of course, but for operations to be relatively easier, it would reflect on the goods and services and the standard of life of the average Nigerian, because even people who work within the formal economy, documented within companies that are registered with not just the CAC but probably the SEC, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and so these companies, these people who work within the formal sector rather still benefit from, still patronize the informal economy. So it's very important that we watch it, and it's very important that there be some kind of, I would say regulations, but there be help to make sure that some of the things that they need, especially with regards to finance, especially with regards to reducing the prices of certain goods and services, it's important to make sure that it's easier for the informal members of the informal economy to access, so that in turn the standard of living of the average Nigerian could, at least in some way, in its little way, be helped. Now that's it for today's video. I'm not going to go any further. I hope you learned something from this, or at least you enjoyed it. If you did, please do leave a comment. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.